Whenever someone introduces themselves with their pronouns, I feel at least 25% safer with them. It means a lot to me when a person, trans or not, makes a space for me to also express myself. It also provides clarity and mutual respect. For transparency, I have been out for almost a decade as a trans man. I always respond enthusiastically with he, him when prompted. That said, at work, sometimes I don't feel comfortable doing so. I expected the typical awkwardness of being a visibly queer person in a historic nonprofit filled with donors and guides over 65. But when I noticed my elderly boss had he, him in his email signature, I genuinely felt so much better about beginning work. When someone offers up their pronouns at work, it makes me feel safer and like I can come out in that space. However, gestures of inclusion don't erase risk. When an environment, online or in person, demands everyone to share their pronouns, it can force a choice between honesty and self-protection. For someone closeted, questioning, or selectively out, that question isn't just a check-in, it's a spotlight. Rather than suggesting or mentioning pronouns, some places not only expect people to reveal that information, but demand it if it's not given. But before we go in depth on that, let me introduce myself. Hi, I'm Sunny Dionysus. I'm an artist, a video essayist, and most of all, an annoyance. I'm fascinated by our digital age and how fandoms shape and reshape the stories they love. Today, I'll be talking more about the trans struggle, though. If that sounds appealing, make sure to subscribe and like the video. Back to the topic. I've seen this in online communities too. Some digital spaces, such as Blue Sky or, God forbid, Twitter, often brand themselves as safe havens, especially for queer and trans youth. But some of these spaces push the idea that everyone should have pronouns in their bio. No exceptions. While the intention may be solidarity, the result can be exclusion. Not everyone is ready to be visible, and pushing someone toward disclosure, especially in the name of allyship, can do real harm. This doesn't stop at cis people either. Trans people have straightforwardly asked several closeted friends of mine what their gender is or if they're transgender, when they have been explicitly private about it. And I find it genuinely frustrating. Another person's gender is not your business if they don't want to share it. It never is. After being forcibly exposed, the trans writer Lee Katomi said it best. Outing is a grave infringement of human rights that could drive trans people to death. Even with good intentions, outing trans people can put them in extreme danger. With the rise of anti-trans sentiment in the US, we're at high risk for interpersonal and systemic violence. In certain states, such as Texas, a child's parents legally need to be notified when they express gender dysphoria. Trans kids in unsafe settings are continually under immense pressure to stay in the closet, and trying to force them out of it, even with good intentions, is deplorable. In college spaces, it's common to start with a pronoun and introduction round. But what if someone isn't ready? What if they're in the middle of exploring? Some professors are starting to have pronouns as an option, not a requirement, or name tags. This is not less inclusive, it's just more compassionate. My friend Trash Discourse on YouTube shared their experience with being asked for pronouns in a space that claimed to be inclusive, only to be met with pushback when hesitated.
Going to queer spaces where declaring your pronouns was mandatory, was really awkward while I was in the process of figuring that out for myself and also soft launching my transition, because it required me to either out myself or misgender myself. So I kind of just avoided those spaces for a while, and I lost out on a lot of opportunity for being in community with other people because of that.
Their story highlights exactly why this kind of pressure, even when framed as progressive, can be alienating and harmful. If you're confused, my advice is simple. Show, don't demand. If you genuinely want to be an ally to trans people, I would consider reading the room first. At the workplace, it may not be the best time to ask someone for their pronouns if you live in a conservative area. If you're talking one-on-one with a person in the same setting, you can casually mention your own pronouns, allowing the person to get the foot in the door if they are trans or trans-friendly. And if you don't know, but you are in a relatively safe place, use they, them. While not everyone uses those pronouns, they're a neutral way to avoid misgendering. Just as importantly, don't reserve they, them for people who look queer. The idea that queerness has a specific look is not only inaccurate, it's harmful. Using neutral language universally helps protect everyone without putting a target on anyone's back. What makes this especially difficult is that many of these harmful pressures don't come from openly hostile places. They come from progressive spaces, from people who want to do the right thing, but end up reinforcing a new kind of conformity. It's a reminder that being inclusive doesn't mean being above criticism. Good intentions don't really cancel out harm. I understand the impulse. The idea is that by making pronoun sharing standard, we normalize it, popularize it even. Especially for trans people who are often asked to explain themselves in ways others aren't. But normalization shouldn't come at the cost of a trans person's safety. If our systems of care exclude the most vulnerable among us, they're not working. If you're cis and unsure what to do, ask yourself, am I making space or demanding presence? Am I offering support or requiring proof? Good allyship doesn't require perfect language. It requires humility, patience, and most of all, trust. Even if you're trans, there is always something more to learn. I sometimes see trans people, especially those who have fully transitioned, assume that most trans people are out of the closet. In today's climate, that just is not true. Pronoun sharing should always be an invitation, not a requirement. A small act of respect for some can be the source of real danger for others. The goal shouldn't just be visibility. It should be safety, autonomy, and choice. While it has the benefit of knowing how to address someone you don't know, it also has many social implications. Mostly good, but a little bad. I want a world where people can come out when they're ready, not because they're pressured to, but because they feel safe enough to. Where gender isn't a test, but something treated with curiosity, respect, and care. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe.